Santucci.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. David Santucci, City Manager. This evening, either virtually or in person, we are joined by the Senior Executive Management Team and Financial Services, including our Budget Office, to provide an overview of the proposed budget. When we met back in, it was June, we went through a very detailed 2-day exercise of reviewing the department level budgets to include their requests as it relates to operational expenses, personnel requests, and capital requests as well. During those meetings, I received some excellent feedback from the City Commission, which I truly appreciate, which has helped us and guide us through the formulation of this year's proposed FY22 budget. The budget, as you know, in accordance with our charter, will be delivered to you by August 15th of this month. And the purpose of this budget workshop is to provide you with a high-level overview of what the budget entails from a fund level and an overall budget perspective. We will go through just some brief economic indicators which I think are relevant to the conversation as we move forward. We'll look at our property values, ad valorem tax revenue as it's been budgeted this year, the budget overview. We'll go into what I believe were the budget initiatives and the focus provided by the City Commission during the budget workshops and in my own conversations that I've had with you individually. We'll take a detailed look at the capital improvement plan, and then I will look for feedback not only from the public, but from you. So where are we today? Today is August 10th. Years past, we had done the budget, the commission budget workshop, and then moved forward with the first budget hearing. This year, I felt it was prudent that we project to the City Commission what to expect in the proposed budget. And that is, again, the purpose of this workshop. As I stated, the budget will be submitted to you by August 15th, in just a few days. Our first public hearing will be held on September 3rd, 2021. It is an unfortunate day to hold the budget hearing. It is a Friday right before Labor Day. And if I could just have Ms. Tinsley explain a little bit about why we have to do the budget hearing on that day.
No, you can do it from back there, that'll be fine.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Thank you. So the September 3rd was the earliest date that we could hold the first public hearing. We, the city clerk, the city attorney, and we met and we did our best to come up with the best option. And so between the holiday, Labor Day holiday on a Monday, as well as Rosh Hashanah, which runs between September 6th and September 8th, and as well, we are not allowed to hold our public hearing on the same date as the school board nor the county. And so they already claimed to the dates within that range, as well as another regulatory requirement is that we are required to publish the notice of the proposed millage in our budget no earlier than I look at it, I'm sorry. No earlier than 5 days, nor no later than 2 days before the public hearing for the final adoption, which is scheduled for September 13th. So we had a very tight window to be able to do that. And we couldn't go any later than the 13th because we're required to then send in the certified adoption of the resolution to the state revenue collector at that point in time. So that was the best without interfering with weekends. Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tinsley.
Okay.
So again, just talking about the budget vision at its highest level. Really, the budget this year looks to revive, recover, and renew our local economy, the city's organizational capacity, and the community service and programs that we have done without the past 18 months, either by a result of restrictions related to COVID or by reductions in our budget in order to anticipate the revenue shortfalls that we imagined that we would have. We want to help and assist in the community with our organizations, helping them recover, helping our businesses, helping our residents to recover in ways in which we know that they need it, and we continue to do that for the foreseeable future and probably into future fiscal years, I will imagine. And then renew our service delivery methods, our infrastructure, our public facilities. So we took a very close look in the way in which we deliver our services, and with the reductions in personnel that we experienced in fiscal year 20 and in this fiscal year, it gave us the opportunity to do that. It also allowed us to look really close at the infrastructure and public facilities, and there has been an emphasis from the City Commission to invest in our capital, our maintenance, repairs, and the overall curb appeal of the city. And I believe this budget accomplishes that. We talked about this last time, but it's still very relevant, and actually it's increased since then, but this is the barometer that we use, and it's important to show that we are in an economic climate of inflation at this given time. I believe the last CIP that came out was well over 5%, but this is the April consumer price index where it was 4.2%. So it has risen since then. And the important thing to take away here is that from a policy standpoint, from a budgeting standpoint, is that we will see increase in our costs to provide services in the materials, labor, and capital that we purchase, at least for the foreseeable future until the consumer price index begins to fall. Looking at the average assessed home values, last year, to recognize that we have had an increase, which is great. We've actually outpaced the Broward County average, which was at 4.8% increase over last year, where we're at 6.9. So overall, we've seen a change in our average assessed values of 14,736. But as you can see, we still lag behind the county average, and we still are the 10th lowest assessed value in Broward County for a municipality. The FY22 millage rate. At the budget workshop, we indicated that there will not be a millage rate, or we were not recommending a millage rate increase. We were recommending to keep it steady. In all actuality, as we've submitted some forms and gone through the budget, we have realized that we were actually going to see a decrease in the total overall millage rate. That is due to a decrease in the debt service millage rate. So taking a look at our millage rate over the past 9 or 10 years or so, we're lowering the total millage rate, as I said. It is due to a decrease in the debt millage rate, which is at 0.3107 in total, and the operating millage rate remains the same. Even though we have reduced our millage rates, we have seen increases in our ad valorem tax revenues. And this year we project that the city will collect $48.7 million in ad valorem tax revenue. This is a 5.6% increase over last year.
Good.
So where does that that ad valorem tax revenue come from? The overall city tax revenue estimated collection is $50.9 million. The CRA's portion from the city is 2.2. And in the previous workshop held by the CRA, they talked about the total tax increment revenue that they received from the various funding sources. So our funding source as a city is 2.2 million, which leaves us with a projected net general fund tax collection of the 48.7 million. 1 mil for the city generates $8.1 million of ad valorem tax revenue. And that's based off of taxable value of our properties of 8.3 billion, which is a 5.1% increase over last year. When you apply the city's tax rate to various structures, or excuse me, various assessed values of homes in the city, what does that look like? We have a large amount of condo properties that can be in the $75,000 range. The average exemption for a home is $50,000. That does not include additional exemptions that might be available to those who are veterans or widows of veterans, those that are blind or have severe disabilities. So a $75,000 property could have a taxable value of $25,000. Apply that to the city's tax rate, and the city ad valorem tax bill for the year on that property would be $158. Likewise, if you apply the same methodology to property B, which would be the average assessed value that we just showed in a previous slide, the city ad valorem taxes due would be $1,344. A $400,000 property would be $2,209. So we show this to give it a little bit of comparison of the various types of properties that we have in the city. Of course, there are properties that are going to fall outside of any one of these three scenarios, but it gives a good idea, an indication of the different types of properties that we do have typically here in the city and what they pay in city taxes. The next few slides I would like for Ms. Tinsley to go over. She'll be presenting to you an overview of the budget at a high level in terms of the revenue sources and the funds that we have within our budget. Ms. Tinsley, if you'd like to do it from there, that'd be fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Santi. So the proposed budget revenues by source, and these are across all funds are listed on the slide in front of you. And so the first one is property taxes. And so the proposed property taxes in total is over 49 million. So 49,899,619. So in the previous slide, Mr. Santiki just outlined what is the new ad valorem tax revenues that we are collecting at 48.7 million. What we also discovered looking back year over year, these past several years, that we also get a substantial amount of collections from delinquency. And so we will be recognizing in FY21 approximately 1.2 million in delinquency tax collections. The prior year was something pretty close to that as well, and we recognized an overall positive revenue collection for property taxes, a little over 800,000. I think that's in their FY 2020 CAFR. It's there. So we're going to do something a little different and make sure that we are taking every opportunity to balance this budget on every dollar that we get. And so we are budgeting for the delinquency collection at approximately $1.2 million to help, again, keep rates the same as we are and just really in a way, I wouldn't say aggressively, but find the right mix and utilize every dollar that comes into the city in order to fund all of the initiatives that we're attempting to do this year. The next line is the sales and use combined with the communication services tax. They relatively, after going through that, relatively keeping that pretty flat from 21. The public services taxes, which it cover electricity, water, things like that, for the taxes from that. Again, relatively flat, little uptick, but hoping that as the economy continues to continue to grow, that people use more electricity, more water, and the associated tax that goes along with it. The fire assessment fees, those were adopted a few meetings ago. And the calculated amount is $15,986,000, and that is a substantial increase from the prior. Currently, we are recognizing $13.5 million. The calculation was based on our consultants and again, based on a number of different factors that go into the calculation for the fire assessment fees. Even though that amount's going up, the actual rate are not. The franchise fees, we think that they're going to drop just a little bit, but it's basically staying flat, not anything to really talk about there. The local option gas tax. So this amount here includes both the amount that's recognized in the general fund of 5.5 million, as well as the road and bridge portion of 1.3 million. Again, these revenue projections are across all funds. And so that amount is there. And we're hoping, again, as the economy is continuing to, and people getting back on their feet, that there will be a lot more travel and use of their vehicles, and that they're gassing up in Deerfield. The license and permits. The license and permits, that covers the business license tax, as well as a number of other various sources. Again, it's at, we're projecting it to go up a little bit at 6,353,700 from FY 2021. The intergovernmental is the state share that we get from the state for a portion of the sales tax, some gas tax, and some other minor amounts, that if we get a percentage of it based on just the other localities as well, on our population and things like that. So our population's growing a little bit, and we're getting a little bit of a bump there, and overall estimates, and we feel that's going to grow a little bit more. The charges for services, that includes not only in the general fund, the ambulance services of 3.2 million, the parking fees that we collected 2.6 million, and of course Parks and Rec charges for services. But it also includes the utilities, which we're estimating at 25.7 million. And the other ones is solid waste and stormwater, solid waste at 17.3 million and stormwater at 2.2. And so we are estimating that there will be an uptick there, especially with some of the Parks and Rec items, as well as utilities and the parking fees as well. Fines and forfeitures pretty much are flat. We don't think there will be a lot there. The grant includes the 16 plus million for the ARP funding. We adopted that this year, and we will be carrying that amount forward into 2022 and bringing forth on that. The drop is related to the CARES Act funding that was recognized in 21 of approximately 2.3 million for that, as well as some additional funding that was related to CARES Act that was recognized with the CDBG of approximately 950,000, as well as some other additional CDBG and hazard mitigation grants that are not recognized in FY 2022 at this point. The admin fees, we kept pretty flat, and the admin fees are the fees that are collected from the funds outside of the general fund to reimburse the general fund for the support services that we provide them. So like solid waste, stormwater, utilities, those funds. The interfund transfers, as you see, they pretty much stay the same as the transfers that go between funds for other reasons outside of that administration fees, basically between debt service and capital. And in this case, it bounced up to 3.9 million. That 3.9 million is basically the transfer to our new capital fund. And that to fund from the general fund, primarily through the use of the excess unassigned fund balance that is above what is the policy requirement that we have. And that there will be further discussions on the capital projects that are going to be funded and the initiatives there. The loan proceeds. So the loan proceeds are the bond. Are the bonds. So we have approximately 25 million in bond funding. I believe it's from the 2018 bond loan proceeds, and most of that is carried forward into 22. There's seems like there's a lot of good movement going on with that, and so there'll probably be a lot more of the spend down occurring during 2022. The other funding sources basically is some various miscellaneous revenues that are recognized throughout all of the funds, typically one-time type stuff, as well as some of the proceeds from the insurance services fund that is recognized there as well. Use of fund balance, that is across all funds. And so the use of fund balance amount is to cover, again, the capital projects that are being funded and any other types of one-time funding that is needed for those projects. And those are across all the funds.
Thank you, Ms.
Yeah, and that's.
Thank you, Ms. Tinsley. So we wanted to concentrate a little bit on the use of fund balance, as that can be misconstrued in many ways. So we wanted to make sure we hit on that. Within the general fund, you're looking at the use of fund balance in the amount of about 4.5 million. 3.7 of that is a recommendation to fund the brand new capital fund. Ms. Tinsley, can you please go just describe briefly the significance of the creation of the capital fund for the commission, please?
Sure. So what has happened in the past here is that the capital projects were being budgeted within the general fund operating. And so this way, and most other localities do this, is that we create a separate capital fund, project fund, so that it's far more transparent to see what the big capital projects are, as well as two, to be able to then readily match when we are using fund balance to fund the capital projects. And so there's a transfer over to the fund balance. You see it very clearly, as opposed to it being modeled within the general fund itself. And so this way you can see it very, very clearly. You're not using fund balance in order to balance our operating budget, but we use fund balance to balance the capital projects, and it's very appropriate to use that type of funding that is in excess of our policy standards in order to fund. It's basically pay-go, if you heard that term before, pay-go capital, pay as you go. It's another opportunity to fund projects without having to wait and take out a bond.
We'll go into further detail on those projects. They do far exceed, I think, this capital request here. But additionally, we have 518,000. That'll be a carry forward of projects that have begun in FY21, but will not be completed by FY21. We carry those amounts forward, and then 250,000 in contingency. We're also looking to use public safety impact fees to fund the majority of the public safety master plan. This will be talked about a little bit more when we get into the capital. There's also a carry forward from the Road and Bridge Fund. We're looking to use park impact fees for parks capital improvements, which is outlined in the capital improvement program, which we will go over here on some slides ahead of us. Also in the utility fund, $6 million is being recommended for $4.2 million in capital improvements and 1.7 in operating. One of the things that I think needs to be brought to the attention of the commission is the 1.78 million for operations. That to me is an indication that we need to take a look at our utility fund fees in the future. One thing that has driven up the costs of our utility expenses is the Broward County wastewater fees. So they've been doing some increases over the past couple of years, and we have not changed our fees to keep pace with that, nor any additional operational costs. So that is something I believe we would like to bring forward to the City Commission here in this upcoming fiscal year for review. The Stormwater Fund, it's a carry forward, and then the Parks and Recreation Future Fund, $154,000 for capital improvements, 93 in operations. That's not of significance or concern. Really, what the Future Fund is from an operational standpoint is, I'll give you an example. The Future Fund funds the art festival, and so revenues or expenses go out, more than what we expend comes in as revenue, and it's maintained in the Future Fund. All right, Ms. Tinsley, I'll go ahead and turn this slide over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to take a look at the proposed budget by fund, and some of the funds have multiple funds as part of it, so the S's are truly there for a reason. So the first fund, which is our general fund, actually includes senior services and the insurance services funds, as noted below. We have merged the senior services into the general fund more formally now, and the insurance services fund still sits as a separate fund at this point, but for reporting purposes, as it relates to when you look into the CAFR, the CAFR, that those funds are rolled up as part of the general fund, and so therefore that's the way the numbers look. They're not reported separately. And so for the overall budget for those three together, which is now basically two, it's the proposed budget is $129,327,129, which overall is a slight reduction from the FY20 21 amended budget. The building services fund, the building services fund is a decrease from of 1.8 million. Basically, the 21 included the budget amendment that we just did in order to refund the general fund for the use of their fund balance of 2.3 million. So the building fund was a little bit elevated in comparison to 2021, but otherwise it's pretty flat. The road and bridge fund, again, it's pretty stable at 5,730,224. The grants funds. So there are multiple grants that roll up for all intents and purposes to what we call grant funds. They cover a multitude of different things, CDBG, home, as well as our newest ARP fund. And so that is what's making up the bulk of that, which is the 16 million and change is sitting in 2021, and then it will be rolled forward into 2022. And as we just, I believe I discussed already in the prior slide, that the decrease is really related to the recognition of the CARES Act funding in 2021, as well as the other CDBG hazard mitigation grants that we received related to the coronavirus and COVID-19 response. And so that's basically the variance there. The utility funds, which cover not only the utility operating fund, but also the it also covers the related debt service fund for the utility fund, as well as its capital fund, which is the water and sewer renewal replacement fund. That fund is seeing an increase to $38,003,061 for a change of 4.5 million. That change is basically the increase in the funding for the water and sewer renewal replacement. Those projects there, as well as a little bit of the debt service that is taking place for the utility fund. The stormwater fund is increasing by about $1 million to $3,154,905. Again, some of that is to hazard mitigation grant that they have received or is slotted to receive in FY 2022 of $531,000, as well as a carry forward amount of requests of $300,000. And I probably failed to also indicate that we have done an initial budget within the funds for estimates of carry forward from 2021 into 2022. And we work with the budget, with the departments to come up with estimates for that. It's close enough towards the end of the current fiscal year that they making some estimates as to whether their goods and or services will be received before September 30th. And then if not, we can put the budget into the next year when it will be received. And that just helps save us a little bit of time and effort, and they can continue through their process of their operations without being hindered in any way. The next one, solid waste funds, that is plural. That covers not only solid waste, but they also have a couple of the funds, including the energy performance fund, is being rolled up currently at this point. with solid waste. And so there's an increase of $2.3 million, or $2.4 million, and that is due to the side and front loaders and a truck of about $780,000, as well as the increase as Mrs. Santucci just spoke about, which is for the disposal fees. That is seeing an increase of about $300,000 for that, and then the fire code renovation is about $250,000 there as well, and some other puts and takes going on there too as well. The debt service funds, there are multiple funds for the debt service funds. That is seeing a decrease of approximately $1 million. That decrease is due to the retirement of one of our capital lease of about $450,000, as well as just a slight administrative change internally to, in the past, I guess, for some reason, the CRA debt was being recognized as part of our debt, and then we would just get a transfer from the CRA over to the general fund. And so just seems like a lot of extra additional effort. And so the CRA was now going to be recognizing the debt within their fund, the CRA fund. We don't really need to do transfers back and forth. We just need to go ahead and allocate the payment between the general fund and the CRA for the portion that they are responsible for. The next item is the capital improvement plan. That plan covers multiple funds. And so it's it will include the new capital fund, capital project fund, and also our bond funded funds. And that there will be a more in-depth discussion about that and those dollars and what they're covering by Mr. Santucci and Mr. Good. I keep that to them to cover. And then the other funds is just about anything else. So we look through a multitude of funds that we have and check to see if they have any fund balances that were available to help with closing the gap on a number of the capital projects and initiatives that we were trying to do. And so we will hear more in depth on that as we proceed in this presentation and going over the capital fund and the funding sources from there. But just know that that's primarily where that's going. Those dollars there are going to fund capital projects, and they have varying amounts available to them. Are there any questions? Okay, so I guess I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Tinsley. We won't go into great detail on this slide, but I thought it was important to show the City Commission the distribution of revenue sources for the general fund. So this is what it is. I won't waste any time on it. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. And then we want to go into the proposed budget by expenditure category, which I think is important. As we look at those changes that were presented by Ms. Tinsley, and when you see the level of capital expenditure that we are looking to do, and future slide will talk in generalities about some of the budget initiatives, it's important to look at where that money is going in the budget. And so from a salary and wage perspective, you can see there's about $2 million increase in the proposed budget. And so what does that consider? That considers two things mainly. One, that considers compensation strategy, and it also considers a change from what we have experienced in 20 and 21 which was a hiring freeze. And so we froze many vacant positions. And during the budget workshops, we talked about a lot of the personnel changes that we wanted to accomplish. And we also got some recommendations from the city commission in terms of some personnel changes or additions that they would like to see. And I'm happy to report that we've been able to accomplish those objectives. Employee benefits, as you can see, is going down a little bit. We're attributing that to our experience. And also, I think this is just a sign of the times, as we have heard for a very long time that we're going to experience at this juncture, a retirement of baby boomers. And I believe COVID has really accelerated that. So when we look at our employee benefits, we've actually experienced or going to experience a decrease from that perspective. Last year, we reduced our budget from our original adopted budget in FY20 by approximately $10 million. And the operating expenditures, you can see, are going back to about where they were in previous years to try to reaccelerate the needed resources that we need to meet the city's objectives for the budget year FY22, and we'll go into that in a minute. Capital outlay is just going down slightly. It's just a matter of which projects are being proposed or getting accomplished in each given fiscal year. And the grants and contributions, Ms. Tinsley, if you could just touch on that portion for me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. And so the grants and contributions, again, this is across all funds. And so within the grants and contributions, that the number for FY 2021 as well as 2022 as part of the roll forward includes the ARP of the $16.23 million, as well as the drop, of course, includes the various grants that we don't have for 2022 that was recognized in 2021. The CARES Act funding, $2.3 million, and the other funding sources through CDBG and the hazard mitigation regarding the coronavirus of approximately $950,000, and as well as some other grants that we do not have at this time. It doesn't mean that we won't get them going forward, but right now we're not going to recognize them as part of the budget as a funding source at this time. Okay, so the debt service portion of the fund, just a slight uptick. And again, this is across all funds and just rolled up a very different way. And so the debt service is essentially pretty flat. We did get a new capital proceeds, loan proceeds, and capital. I'm sorry. We began a new capital loan, and that's being budgeted for FY 2022 as well. And then the interfund transfers are pretty. The only difference there in the interfund transfers is basically the transfer from the general fund to the capital project fund, use of the excess unassigned fund balance of approximately $3 to $4 million, which I believe Mr. Santucci covered in a previous slide. The details on that, and we'll probably talk a little bit more going forward on that. And so then it's a total proposed budget overall of $258,593.11, with a dollar change of $9,311.168 from prior. And that is pretty much in line with FY 2020, close to that, as Mr. Santucci indicated. FY 2021 was in response to the COVID environment, and we did a lot of cost containment with the budgeting process. And we're seeing that as we go forward with the economy and people coming out, and there's a lot more travel, people coming back to work. We think things will be far more and maybe in a normal or what is considered normal going forward into FY 2022.
Thank you. I want to talk about the budget initiatives and the focus that this budget has. And again, this is not meant to go into great detail, line item detail on the department budgets. You will be getting the proposed budget at the end of this week. We want to provide a high level overview so you can see where the numbers have come in and where the focus of the budget is. And so the things that I heard and the things that in my conversations with the city commission, what we have focused on this year is to rebound with our community events. I talked about an initiative of mine, which is the creation of the Department of Community Services. Commissioner Drosky brought forward the idea of the creation of the Office of Public Safety, which we discussed during the budget workshops. There was also a lot of talk from what I gathered of emphasis on economic development and redevelopment. And we put things in the budget to address that. We'll talk further about that too as well. In fact, I will now. The ULI study suggested that we should have a redevelopment specialist position to initiate the downtown district central corridor project. But above and beyond that, let's look at some of our other redevelopment initiatives and areas of focus. Pioneer Grove, Four Corners, initiatives like the creation of a commuter rail station. These are all redevelopment efforts that I believe we need to put our best foot forward on in order to make these dreams realities. In addition, we took a close look at the studying activity that was requested in the budget. So when we talk about putting dollars towards Four Corners, putting dollars towards the DBR, money is in the budget as requested for those activities. City Commission also asked that we emphasize city marketing and public engagement. I believe it was the mayor who said that, those activities, our promotion of our city, getting out there, the things that our public affairs and marketing department does, is very important. We've put money in there and we've added that position as requested, and we're able to do that. Infrastructure maintenance and repair, we're going to go into our capital improvement plan in just a bit, so I will refrain from that discussion for now. But there was a general overall feeling of enhancing the beach as well as the overall city curb appeal. As you can see, we have placed dollars into the operational budget to address those things. Things like our medians, our beach boardwalk or sidewalk, and amenity items out there like the restrooms and the garbage cans and the many very simple things that we can address but need the capital to do. That is in the budget, and I have a very strong expectation in improvements in those areas. Public safety infrastructure planning, you saw earlier that we have dedicated funding for a public safety infrastructure plan, master plan. That is the first step to get us headed in the right direction for the funding, design, and construction of these facilities. So we are finally able this year to put the dollars towards that. I'm looking forward to that activity. And then I'm going to talk about how we're able to accomplish this with really a net neutral personnel change. In fact, it's a small decrease. I want to just talk about our city special events, which I know are a very exciting thing for our community. I want to make sure that the City Commission understands what those net costs are for these events, as well as how much attendance they bring in on average. I think what's important to note here is some of them are newer than others. For instance, when you look at the Juneteenth event of 2,300 people, it was the first year that we did it. But these are the overall net costs of these events, and some of them have, bring in absolutely no revenue to us, but are very, and are relatively low attendance. But when you look at what they are and who they serve, there's great value in them. For instance, Surfers for Autism, Dunn's Run, Veterans Day, and the Ryan Owens Memorial Day, which is all, for all good causes. The one thing I do want to note for the Ryan Owens Memorial Run, that does take place on Veterans Day weekend, but we put some additional dollars into that event so that we can do a Veterans Day ceremony. We could talk more about that, on how we plan to do that. But I did want to present this slide to the City Commission just to give them an overview of the major city special events that we are planning to do this year. And I'd like to just pause to see if there's any questions at this time. Okay. The other initiative that I brought forward was the reorganization of the Center for Active Aging and Legislative and Community Affairs into one department. That has been a net neutral from a personnel standpoint, actually reduction in personnel, because of efficiencies that we gain across both of those departments, and operationally neutral. Again, this would be taking the Director of Active Aging. She would become the Community Services Director. The Assistant Director of Community Services would be under her, and these would be the 4 divisions underneath that department. We still would be transferring transportation to Parks and Recreation, along with some of the recreational positions that were previously or currently in the Center for Active Aging. And this is what we had talked about back in June on what those changes look like. That still remains the same. And just important to note that all these deletions or decreases are for unfilled positions, so there is no effect to an actual individual or employee. What is the Community Services Department? What will they be doing? They'll provide senior support, referral, and counseling services. They'll also house the Alzheimer's adult daycare, the respite services, and case management. It will manage all of the grant coordination and administration activities, not only for the grants that are currently in the Center for Active Aging or the housing grants like CDBG, CHIP, and HOME that are in Community and Legislative Affairs, but it will enhance our ability and administration and oversight management of citywide grants in general. It will link all of our neighborhood and residential support programs that we currently have, things like the first-time home buyer assistance, utility and mortgage and rental assistance programs that we see will be continuing for quite some time to come. Still maintains the intergovernmental affairs, our interactions with other local elected officials at the county, the state, and the federal level, interactions with our lobbyist services. All those intergovernmental affairs will still be housed within this department. It will enhance our community outreach and events and volunteer coordination. We do several events through both of these departments, and we want to be able to, again, consolidate and link and enhance those activities. Also within this department, which was previously in Legislative and Community Affairs, is all the local school support that's provided, our mentorship programs and educational assistance. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Office of Public Safety. Within the Office of Public Safety, as previously shown, this has not changed too much. The only thing that I did add that was not in the organizational chart previously, after looking at the administrative support that would be needed to accomplish this department, is the addition of a N8 office specialist. So providing the administrative support that this department will need to function properly. As you can see, it still has the Director of Public Safety and also the addition of an Emergency Management Coordinator. The departments and the divisions that would fall under the Office of Public Safety would be the Fire Rescue, Law Enforcement. Under Law Enforcement is Parking Enforcement as well. Ocean Rescue, Code Compliance, our Parking Authority and Crossing Guards, Park Rangers, and the Beach Ambassadors. which would be a new operation for this fiscal year. To give you some idea of how much of what that organizational chart looks like in terms of dollars, it is approximately 60% of our general fund. So what are the objectives of the creation of the Office of Public Safety? We really want to just increase the overall fiscal accountability of the public safety functions, looking for ways that we can eliminate and reduce redundancies, aggressively pursue grants, which I believe is lacking at this moment because we just don't have the same resources that we used to pursue those grants. Also, additional contractual cost reductions, and we want to increase the operational accountability and the oversight of all the contractual services, ensuring that these public safety operations are aligned with our city mission, and an overview and look at how we manage capital and not only manage, but budget for capital outlay and equipment usage through all functions of public safety. It's going to create more of a coordinated city-driven effort as we look at moving forward with our public safety master plans and the necessity of the infrastructure that is needed to support those operations. It will also allow us to increase our community engagement. One of the things that I have and many of the city commission has been vocal about is ensuring that from a law enforcement perspective, there is stability in positions that are supposed to be outward facing into the community to establish relationships with our nonprofits and our community partners. And I believe this will accomplish that. Last but not least is the emergency management coordination, which I feel is a very essential function of this office and would be a tremendous enhancement for the city. What will be the responsibilities of this department? Again, it'll be the management and oversight of law enforcement, fire rescue, emergency management, ocean rescue, parking enforcement, and the parking authority, code compliance, school crossing guards, park rangers, and beach ambassadors. They'll be required and responsible for monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of our service delivery methods from our contractual providers and ensuring that there's a good allocation of resources to accordingly implement cost-saving measures. They will plan, coordinate, and implement the public safety operations and activities across all of the functions and coordinate with city management staff on key initiatives and events. It will enhance our volunteer network and engagement for our volunteer organizations that are specific to public safety, like CERT, COPS, which is Citizens on Patrol, and Crime Watch. Again, they will be responsible, this office will be responsible for the coordination of the emergency management activities between the city and our contractual providers and our emergency management partners like Florida Department of Emergency Management and the county. They'll be responsible for reviewing, updating, implementing on a constant basis the comprehensive emergency management plan, our disaster management plan, and our continuity of operations plan, which should be updated on a continual basis. They will be responsible for assigning EOC staff, recording and planning all training activities for the EOC to include various activities, exercises, and specific position-specific roles that each EOC staff member has. They'll be responsible for evaluating and assisting through the master planning process, the capital design and construction of our public safety assets and infrastructure, assisting with the development of that long-range plan. They'll also assist in the development of this annual budget, and as I mentioned, it's approximately $69 million of the general fund. Also, it will assist in analyzing overall local public safety statistics and trends, being able to match those and evaluate those with current professional standards, legislation, technology, and best practices as these public safety functions seem to ever be changing more constantly in this day and age. With those changes that I've shown you with community services and the Office of Public Safety, as well as there were several positions that we showed during the June meetings of taking some part-time positions that we either have very high turnover in or we have very difficulty in filling, taking those, grouping them together and creating a full-time position. With all of those changes, the net in full-time across the city is -2. Some of the things I want to point out that was very evident to me in our budget workshops, especially as it related to the conversation for the Office of Public Safety, is that they wanted that position of Director of Public Safety to be neutral. I've accomplished that by reducing staff within my office, which is the removal of one of the assistant city managers, the program and innovation manager, and adjusting that to add one more additional administrative position that will assist this office not only with the functions within the city manager's office, but also the office of the city commission and each one of you. The level of involvement, and this is really, I think, a kudos and a testament to the involvement that each one of you have in various boards, committees, and the community. It far exceeds what I have experienced being in the city manager's office in the past. And so that's a very good thing. It gets us involved, it gets us engaged, it gets our name of the city of Deerfield Beach out there and puts a name and a seat at the table for many of these large initiatives that we see throughout the county. For instance, a solid waste working group or the mayor's roundtable. But we need the additional support in that office, quite frankly. We also, as I did mention, we did add within economic development, added a position to add that redevelopment specialist, and within public affairs and marketing, an increase of one position as discussed during those workshops as well. But again, overall, the net effect with all of these changes is -2 FTEs. Moving down to the Broward Sheriff's Office, we did add those 4 positions for law enforcement. So those 4 positions are included in the budget that you will receive at the end of this week. At this point, we're going to go into the capital to give an indication and an idea of the amount of infrastructure projects that we are bringing forward in this budget. These ones may be repetitive, but I thought it was important to show the amount of projects this fiscal year that will be funded by grants. So in some cases, this is just the design work of a project that will later have an even bigger impact on a slide like this with millions of dollars for grant-funded infrastructure projects. Ms. Tinsley talked extensively about the creation of the capital project fund, and this is what will be housed in it. So we have license plate recognition systems, Constitution Park main playground, electrical upgrades over in the Arboretum. So now that we have the new phase 2 rainforest, we want to be able to have the electrical capacity to do events better there at night. For instance, the haunted Arboretum, or the we do another evening event that I can't sip and stroll. Thank you very much. Truck wash facility that we need to meet compliancy for our permit at the Central City campus is we're looking to do that one. Looking at the old schoolhouse, there are some needed renovations that we need to do to that asset. We're also looking to replace the pier gazebo roof. We also have awnings on our fire stations that we need to replace. Some of these awnings are not actually like an awning over a window, but we're talking awnings that sit over vehicles. For instance, at Fire Station 111, which is the trailer that we have. We have some additional other roof replacements and AC replacement. Fire Station 102 has been in need of a paint job for quite some time. It is all really not about so much of it making it look nice, but to secure that envelope when you do paint these facilities. We're going to be adding a generator at Fire Station 75. This is a capital request from a safety and emergency management perspective, as when we do have storms, and let's knock on wood that the one out there just lingers, that we have the capacity to operate out of that fire station. This will help with that. We have a vacant tank over at Fire Station 4 there on Hillsborough and Federal. That fuel island is no longer in use, and we need to remove those tanks. The necessity for that really is that the tanks are old and the insurance costs are high. So ultimately, it will be a cost savings to us to remove those tanks. The middle school aquatics parking lot, we do know that floods quite often, so we're looking to do a capital project to address that. I believe this is only the design phase of that, Mr. Good, is that correct? Yes, so this will be the design of those improvements, and in later years, we'll move forward with that capital project. We also have other various park improvements that I won't go into them in very big detail unless you have a question about that. But you do know that in September, we're anticipating the award of a grant from Fine to address the Pioneer Park dock railing and piling. So that's in there as well. The beach renourishment I do want to touch on, and I know I already talked at length of the public safety master plan, so I will not. With the beach renourishment project, it was anticipated that this budget would include a $3 million beach renourishment project. However, the permitting agencies, specifically U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, has indicated that they will not extend the existing permit that is in place for that segment of beach. So they are requiring us to go and renew that, or not renew, but redo that permit. It's unfortunate because the Florida Department of Environmental Protection was on board. However, when it got to the federal level, that's the information that we received. So what does the $500,000 do? A while back, we secured a large portion of sand that we believe we can do a dry beach project. And we also need to start the permitting activity for that larger $3 million project that we'll likely have to do in either fiscal year 20, probably fiscal year 23, but no later than 24. So that's what that funding is for. I wanted to give that explanation. Lifeguard Towers, our Lifeguard Towers have really outlived their useful life. They have constant repair issues due to their age. And with the increased amount of visitors we have there at the beach, as I mentioned before, we would like to add a new tower to the north end. We're hoping that $423,500 which is our cost estimate, will allow us to construct 2 new towers under the new design that was approved some time ago by the City Commission. We talked about the city phone system replacement, which is going to be a cost-saving measure. We spend close to $500,000 a year on phones, and we will greatly reduce the cost by this capital expenditure. We're also including $137,500 for a complete refurbishment of the Quiet Waters Park field, which continues to give us issues. We have seen some progress, but it's grass, it grows slow. In my opinion, we're not going to see the improvements that we need in the length of time that we need them to happen. So we are making a recommendation to refurbish those fields. There's about 500, and then in this fund, there's about 523,000 in other equipment and fleet replacements. Did not provide the complete list, of course, in the capital improvement plan, but we're talking mostly here about vehicle replacement. And then West Community Center with the asterisk, this is going to be funded out of park impact fees. And this is to complete the renovation of the West Community Center, which sits there on Power Line Road next to the water tank and Fire Station 6. I have a road and bridge. If I could have maybe Mr. Good take over for a little bit on this one.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. so in the Road and Bridge Fund, you see we have quite a number of projects. Many of these projects are being funded by other sources other than what we get from local gas tax and things. But the projects here, we have our technical urbanism. This is something that some of you all have been involved with. This is Northeast 3rd Avenue. This is the actual implementation of some of those strategies that have been discussed and identified as being able to help mobility and traffic calming. We also have the parking lot resurfacing. It's $100,000 dedicated this year. Looking like we're going to target Palm Plaza being the first one to severely replacement. The city bridge rehabilitation is the Southeast 13th Ave. This is our tax funded project. We've heard a lot about the bridges there. So this is initiating the construction piece of that. We also have the Southwest 10th Street and Dixie Highway Railroad crossing. This is the crossing itself. This is something that we don't do, but the railroad company does it. We're under an agreement that whenever there's maintenance requirements that they do the work, we reimburse them for that. So that's about $200,000. We expect it to be a little bit less, but that's not a project of ours direct. The FAU Research Park Boulevard. This is going from 10th Street on over to 48, essentially. We're looking to widen that from a 2-lane to a 4-lane with full service thoroughfare with sidewalks and bike lanes and lighting, drainage, and all these other things that go with the new road installation. This $480,000 is again surtax funded, but this is strictly the design. We will be applying for the actual construction work in future application cycles with the county. And we also have the citywide pedestrian lighting. This is a project that's happening right now. This is for pedestrian style lighting in some areas of the city. If you need to know exactly where they are, I can get up for you in a minute. It's just slipping my mind right now. Streetscape improvements. This is for projects that whenever state roads do improvements, sometimes there's opportunity to do upgrades. For instance, if you want decorative lighting or if you want poles to be painted a different color or additional sidewalks and things of that nature, this is what this money does. We do have some projects that are earmarked for. We're looking at power lines about ready to get expanded from a 2-lane, or excuse me, 4-lane to a 6-lane. And then we also have projects on Dixie Highway as well. The truck wash facility, again, that's a requirement for us to be able to clean our trucks in a very safe way that is consistent with environmental controls. And then we have the Pioneer Grove corridor. This is pretty much Northeast 2nd Avenue from Eller all the way down to 10th Street, and also I believe it's 4th from Dixie Highway to 2nd Avenue. Again, this is all design money. This is a surtax funded project as well. We'll be applying again for construction dollars in future application cycles. And then there's $232,000 worth of equipment material. So moving on to the water and sewer. So for 22, we also have some plant security improvements that we want to do. As we know, and we do have a facility that is, we get constant reviews from security agencies, and they give us advisements, and we actually, by state law, are required now to submit plans and show that we actually have a physical infrastructure that support the plans for site security. Our raw water wells, we're looking at rehabbing and upgrading them. We've been doing that. It's not done for quite a while. This is where we go in and kind of clean out the wells so that we can get better water production out of them. And this project has turned out to be, at least for this year, highly successful. And so we have a few more that we need to do in order to ensure that we have appropriate water supply. And then we have some valve replacements. These are just standard things within a plant facility. Filter level, valve controls, and standard stuff. The line slaker. This is one of the principal units that's utilized in order to through our lime softening treatment, which produces about 50% of our water. And so this lime slaker is rather old. It's the original piece of equipment. It needs to be improved quite a bit. So there's $20,000 there. Fiber optic upgrade, that's a lot to do with communications throughout the plant. As you know, plants nowadays are operated off of telemetry type of remote controls, whether it's for reporting and some controls and things like that. None of this is connected to the outside world. It's all interior to the plant, but fiber optic is what makes this communication a bit more better for us, a little bit more understanding. That's what I'm looking for is. We have a gravity sewer lateral lining program and a mainline lining program. This is to rehabilitate the pipe under the ground. This prevents us from having to do any above ground excavation. Some of these above ground excavations just on lateral pipe alone, if it's under an emergency condition, we spent up to $100,000 on a single lateral in the past. So this is a program we run every year, and it gives us greater protection against failures. And then we have a water main pipe repair and replacement. This is really a line item in there that whenever we have pipes that break within certain right of ways, it's a little bit difficult for us to handle. The contract goes out and get them repaired and replaced. Probably one of the most recent ones you'll remember is the one that happened on Hillsborough there near military, where we were in Hillsborough, and that's a state road, and there was a lot of requirements that went in, not just the fixing the pipe, but also to restore the road. The RO element replacement and train refurbishment is $70,000. It's essentially a design work for a future project. This is allowing us to be able to improve the productive capacity of our membrane filtration system. And then we have a bulk storage tank and chemical piping replacement, which has become very old, and we need to go ahead and replace that. And some of the stuff that we handle are like acids, sulfuric acids, caustic sodas, and things of that nature. It's very high-end chemical quantities and requires replacement. So moving on then to the solid waste one. And so in the solid waste world, one of the primary things is that we have gas detection system now that we're, fully operational with our gas plant, natural gas plant, and then, of course, with our natural gas trucks. We need to have a gas detection system now, sort of like a fire code element for us. And then there's equipment, which is side loader, front loader, and some vehicles. And in the Stormwater Fund, we have citywide stormwater improvements. These are for local projects. We have bigger projects that we can talk about that are not included here, but we do anticipate to be handled through another funding source. But these are more like local projects, smaller, able to be managed pretty quickly to provide relief for some of these flood situations that we have. We also have the Pioneer Grove Drainage of Public Streets. This is an HMGP grant. This project is really centered around City Hall here. It's sort of like the baseline, the base to afford us a greater drainage capacity ability for the Pioneer Grove corridor. So what this project is basically going to do is going to establish very large pipe size around City Hall, primarily because then it's going to go through the park and it's going to go to the canal system. And what we're going to be able to do is connect to that system across, and we'll be able to jump over Hillsborough down 2nd, and the goal is to run it down to 10th Street. So now you have a major spine system that discharges into the Hillsborough, and then we'll be able to connect all the new drainage systems to the spine system. So this is basically setting up a big discharge point, call it, for this larger drainage vision that we have for the city. We also have the Crystal Lake Drainage and Pavement. This again, $85,000. Is a design for again another larger project later on. This is trying to achieve the drainage and the pavement in advance of the C slips that we were awarded. We were awarded in cycle 5, which I believe we're going to be getting the monies of 25-26. So, but, you know, before you put in some improvements, we want to make certain that we have proper drainage in place before we have any other additional amenities or infrastructure on top ground. So, and then we just have a backhoe loader combination unit up these now. So.
Thank you, Mr. Good. With that, that is the conclusion of the presentation. Again, wanted to just make sure that we provided the city commission with an indication of where the budget ended up in terms of being balanced, how we were able to accomplish that at a fund level, ensure that the initiatives that were brought forward by the city commission during the budget workshops are included in the budget from an overall perspective, and just make sure that we were provided a bit of detail on the numbers prior to receiving the budget on August 15th, bearing in mind that we still have 2 budget readings on September 3rd and on September 13th. Thank you. With that, I'm more than happy to take any questions and look forward to discussing the budget further with each one of you once you receive.
Other commission comments? Question?
Under the slide of beach enhancement, just kind of think that we need to, you know, really consider, you know, major renovations at our pier. If you go down to Pompano Pier, you will see that it is beautiful, really beautiful. And our pier is good. I really think that we should consider doing some major work here, major work to make it attractive, so that not only will we attract tourists, but actually with a renovation plan, invite the residents of Deerfield Beach to come out and enjoy something that is in their neighborhood, in the neighborhood of Deerfield Beach, and can be something that all of districts can enjoy. So there was a proposed $6,200 for Junior Anglers Day. I just really think that we should really look to invest in our children. I think $6,000 is really light. I just would like to see more of a commitment to involve our children. The pier is there. Let's actually give the pier personnel the resources that they need to be able to put on something quality. To me, at $6,200 proposed is actually very light. I think that at the very least, that should be like in the neighborhood of about $10,000.
Vice Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Those are net costs. A lot of our events do come with sponsorship opportunities, revenue generation, and in kind. So what you see at Junior Anglers Day is a reflection of the net cost. So,
And would that be
Go on, spot.
Yeah.
So some of the other projects, things like that would be the case for like, let's say, Black Heritage with, because there was a proposal for $18,000 for that.
correct. So that receives some sponsorship dollars as well.
Okay, all right, I just hold my questions as well. Then let me ask you, when are we going to start looking at perhaps not only grants, but bond money for new fire stations. I was at one of our fire stations recently. And listen, I served at station with the on the BSO is called Station 4. That's where I initially reported to duty. So we have to ask ourselves, how much time can you get out of a fire station? I served my whole career in there, my whole career. It's falling apart, literally falling apart. So whether it's grant, bond, or whatever, I'm just saying we need to do something. But our stations in Deerfield Beach are falling apart. You're talking to a person who went through the process. Station 66, which in the city of Deerfield Beach was called Station 2. Go over there. Just go look. The stations are falling apart. We need to do something. We're better than that. So, you know, I just have some concerns there with that. So, in that one slide, it said that the 4th of July was a city expense. I thought that came out of the CRA budget.
The actual firework display, I believe, is sponsored by the CRA, but the city has expenses as well.
Okay, all right, but it said 4th of July, it's city expense.
So those are the expenses for the
Just
city.
the fireworks is out of the CRA budget, correct?
I believe so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate the importance of the fire stations as well as the BSO stations. It's nice that we're putting paint on them, but as I've been saying for the last 2 years, when are we actually planning on doing something to fix these buildings? Because it's not right. These individuals protect us. These individuals help us in our time of need. And for years, the city has kicked the can down the street. And I still don't see anything in the budget that really addresses some of the issues. 2-3 weeks ago, I got photos of mold in one of the houses. Again, I just don't see any planning of when are we going to put something on paper that says, okay, this is where we're saving money for it, so that we get something in the future. I don't see anything yet. So, and again, I've been asking this for 2 years. So I think that that's extremely important, that I would really like to know when we're going to start seeing something in paper that says, yeah, we're going to address this station, and then this station, and then this station, and this BSO station. So I would really like to know what we plan on doing, because I don't see any plans. I know we're spending a lot of money, and I'm not saying that the money that you've earmarked for your projects are incorrect, but I don't see any plan for these stations. And like I said, it's been 2 years. So I'd appreciate some feedback on that. Thank you.
Sure. Great. Okay, so what I'll say, Commissioner Hudak, is over the course of the past probably 2.5 to 3 years, I haven't seen so much emphasis on repair and maintenance of those fire stations than what I had seen in years prior. I believe that that we have a great relationship with the fire chief and BSO downtown, because they have facilities folks and they have environmental folks that will come in and inspect these facilities. We take those reports, and we have been budgeting, and we have been repairing to the extent that we can, and to meet the requirements of not only fire codes, but life safety codes. And the instance that you're talking about right there is a very good example. Fire Station 66 was a major project to update the life safety code of that building. You removed the window and you exposed decades of multiple paneling that has been on that wall, and you've got exposure to elements. We are remediating that, and we are ensuring that we take care of that facility. But those repairs to those current facilities, I agree, are not enough to what the ultimate need is, not just with the fire stations, but with the police station as well. The public safety master plan is meant to bring us to what I would call what is the type, the right size, type, and location for the needs of the fire stations. Where should they be located? How big should they be? What do they need to accommodate? Those sorts of things. That's the master planning activity that needs to take place. If we don't have that, we're not going to have the information that we need in order to understand the true costs of what those facilities are going to be. And I truly believe that those efforts are going to require a heavier lift than what the general fund currently absorbs through creative funding mechanisms like P3 partnerships, bond proceeds, and grants. So I know that there's not been a lot of patience with the public safety facilities. What I can tell you is that we are moving in the right direction. We are moving in a positive direction to ensure that we are on the right path to repair those facilities. I think the master planning of all of the public safety facilities is crucial and the first initial step really to get us headed in the right direction.
Do we have a time frame on when we're gonna get this master planning finished, started?
Well, we'll have to go through the procurement process for that in the new fiscal year. It's a approximately $600,000 project. And as we engage likely prospective consultants to put that together for us, we'll get a better understanding of what those timeframes are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go with Commissioner Grosky and then Commissioner Parnas.
Todd, are you going first?
Yes, Commissioner Grosky first. You'll need to unmute yourself, Commissioner Grosky.
Sorry, I was waiting to be unmuted. But thank you though, Mayor. First of all, can we end the screen share? All I'm staring at is a big teal box that says questions.
There you go.
I apologize for that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Much better. Listen, with respect to the fire station issue first, I certainly share my colleagues' frustrations on this particular issue. I've discussed it with the city manager and he's told me privately about the need for the master plan and I understand it and it makes a lot of sense. You just don't want to go out and build a fire station without knowing the requirements, the needs, the locations and the specifics. There's a lot of truth to that and I'm frustrated as well by the slow process that it takes. But it may be an opportunity in waiting that we have here with the P3 opportunities going forward to kind of develop not only the fire stations, but our parks. This is a bigger issue than just the fire stations. We have our parks. Look at Marty Popelski Park with that huge park just sitting there. So that's an opportunity as well. So we have assets in the city, our fire stations, our police station, our parks to use as part of a P3 going forward. It's a lot of moving pieces and it's not an easy conversation, but the wheels are slowly starting to turn. You find out very quickly once you start sitting up here on the dais that those wheels never turn as fast as you want them to. And this is the perfect example, but so long as we keep those wheels in motion and that me and my colleagues continue to keep that pressure on that those wheels turn, I think we're going in the right direction. So that's my 2 cents on that. With respect to the budget, I just received this presentation literally right before the meeting. So I'm going to need time to review it and digest it. And I'll have a meeting, with the city manager and his staff going forward. The question that I want to ask tonight is, were there any ARP funds used in the balancing of this budget? And if not, when are we going to see that separate list of ARP projects, that will, I guess, be paid outside of what we're looking at tonight? Because I'd like to view the ARP projects versus the projects in this budget and kind of line them up and see, what's covered. Are we missing anything? And not going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Parnas?
Yes, to me, the plans to upgrade, fix 50, 60, 70-year-old buildings that are in constant repair. One of them, we have to put the firemen in a hotel because of flooding. It's just throwing money, bad money after bad money after bad money, and not accomplishing what we need to accomplish. We need to have a plan to systematically replace 50, 60, 70-year-old buildings with a modern one, like we have along the highway. That station is gorgeous. It's roomy. It's accessible. The one on the beach is not. I don't see on a Sunday how a fire truck gets out of there and moves more than 1 mile an hour to get to a fire because of the route it has to take. I think we need a major sit down and a systematic planning of how to replace instead of patching old buildings. We can't keep doing that forever. That's just throwing money out. We have to find a way to build systematically new modern stations. Lives depend on it. And the safety of our fire people depend on it. And I'd like to sit down with either the whole commission, the city manager, with the fire chief. There are new fire stations built in Broward County. Let's find out where the money came from, who got help, how it got help, what it costs, and let's start planning for the future. We just can't keep throwing money away repairing unrepairable buildings, except patchwork. Every year it's something else. It's wrong. It's wrong for the city. I think it's a major thing that we have to bite the bullet and move on it. I've been on the commission for 5 years now, and I've been trying to get ideas to get a new station. And it shouldn't take this long. There's got to be a way we can cut through all of the things that have to get done to get it done. We put our heads together and work with the fire department and others. How did they do it? Why can't we get what they got to help them put a new fire station together? I think that's necessary. I hope you'll all think about that. I just can't see constantly wasting money repairing old buildings. That this year the air conditioning's out, next year they got a flood, then they got mold, then they got this. No. We need new and modern equipment. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Obviously, there's a lot to go ahead and try to take in on all of this. I'm going to say this. It's not as simple as what you might think. Let's give an example of the fire station on the beach. Fire station on the beach, that property, limited in size. A complete tear down is probably not going to fit. You have to meet all the new building codes that is going to fit something in on that parcel of property. So where do you move it to? Is that the best spot for it? You have to keep it on the island because obviously we have a lot of service over there. There's a lot more challenges to it. Yes, this time to come up with a plan. So totally understand that. We've been attacking it in the areas that we have, but certainly we know that kind of the Band-Aid approach will eventually need to change. And it's time to start moving in that direction. But I don't want anybody to think that it's just as easy as let's build a new fire station on that spot. I'm concerned about some places, not just those city facilities, but other city facilities recently renovated and done work on that are falling under disrepair. And we need to find out why that's happening, make sure that we're taking care of it. There's a little too much here, and having just got this right before here to be able to have a lot of commentary on it, in my opinion. I will say this, I do have concern just based on what I've preliminarily seen with this new position that we have with the Office of Public Safety. It goes beyond what I think the initial conversations were. If you look at the salary ranges for those three positions down there, I have concerns. So I'm gonna need some time to digest all this information. I have a simple question. I'm having a hard time trying to locate it. So one of the reasons we're able to lower our millage rate, which is great, is trying to understand that part of that came out of because of our lowering of our debt service. Is that what I understood?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
Okay, but is the lowering that we got in the debt service equal to what we're lowering the millage rate? Because it doesn't seem like it is to me.
It is. Let me take a look at which we're looking at.
I also have a question regarding the ad valorem tax revenue projections. You're saying it's a 5.6% increase. The next page, it says there's a 5.1% increase in taxable values of properties. Obviously, there's a difference there.
Correct.
Okay, so one's tax revenue, another one is taxable value.
Correct. What the 5.6% increase on slide number 9 is the increase in the ad valorem tax revenue. The percentage that's shown on slide 10, which is 5.1% increase, is the increase in the taxable value of properties.
Okay. I believe it was a decrease in that debt service, wasn't it $1.124 million? Is that correct?
I'm trying to turn to it now. Do you have a slide number for that, Mayor?
No, it wouldn't help any of us. No numbers on this.
14?
The sheets. So, there are, oh, there in the middle. Okay.
I think on slide 14, the debt service fund is shows a decrease of 1.1 million.
1.124306, right? That's what I have here. Is that the equivalent of what we lowered our military by?
No, it's not. It's not directly in relation to the debt service military.
Okay. I thought that's what you had said originally was because of the decrease there. That I would imagine probably anticipated a decrease and it'd be more than what you expected. Go ahead, have that.
Ms. Tinsley, on the slide 14, which is the proposed budget overview by fund, a debt service fund, which
Yes.
shows a decrease of 1.1 million.
Correct.
Is that a direct relationship to the decrease in the debt service millage rate? And then why or why not?
So the decrease is related to two things. It's related to the retirement of the capital lease, which is not,
That's all great.
yes, not,
I don't care where it came, how it happened. You've already said that. What I'm
Yes.
trying to understand is that dollar amount equal to what we lowered the millage rate by?
no.
It's not. Okay, and why?
Because the debt service millage rate is a reduction based on increased property values. So if you have a level debt service rate, if you have property values that increase, then you don't need to have a millage rate as high as you may previously had, because you're paying, you just need to pay the same amount as the year previously.
Okay. One thing I want to point out, this is something Deerfield Beach should be proud of, is that our goal for a long time, talking about how people say, well, our millage rate, I don't see comparisons to other cities in this. I'm curious to look at that, to see where we fall. But Deerfield Beach's millage rate is where it's at, because our assessed value is still far behind where the average is for Broward County. Broward County's average is 292,000. We're at 212. We've done a great job of trying to increase the values of our assessed values here, because that has really hindered us from getting lower the millage rate, which we'd all like. But we're at a higher pace than Broward County. We're increased our values by 6.9%, while Broward County's average is only increased by 4.8%. That's a good thing. I mean, we're sitting up here when our assessed average values are probably in the 170s, if not lower. So it's good to see that. Again, a lot of information to digest. I have serious concerns about this public safety position that we'll have to have some further conversation regarding that. Is there anyone from the public that care to comment on what's been presented? I don't see anybody from the public. I'll wait one more second. Not see if anything to close it to the public.
Oh, no. Oh,
Would you like to say something, Ms. Clark Reed?
yes, I
I
would.
recognize your voice and I see your mic is open. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield Beach. Mayor, I listened very as carefully as I could, because the first part of the meeting I couldn't get in. But from what I have gathered, this public safety position, it's all encompassing of things that the city manager was responsible for and other department heads. So it's a lot to get my head around. I don't see us being able to really implement all of the parts of this. Yes, I heard you say that you want to go take a very closer look at it. And I think all of the commissioners need to do that. We also, when we talk about our fire stations, we also have to realize that when we rezone properties and we change them from residential to commercial or to business, that has an impact too on what the ability of our fire stations are able, the services they're able to provide to those residents where we change the zoning. So I think there's a lot that has to go into consideration. Yes, we do need new fire stations. They are old, they're falling apart, and we're just patching them up year after year. And this has been going on for quite some time, as you said. So I'm hoping that as we look through this budget, that we're able to at least get started on some kind of discussion about the fire stations and which fire stations we really need to tackle first. Remember, the fire station on the beach is almost landlocked. There's really no other land really that I know of that's available over there for you to start building a new fire station or expanding that fire station. So there's a lot that we have to really look at. What is it that we have and what can we do with what we have? So this budget process for tonight, I was concerned that I couldn't get a copy of what was being presented. Now I learned you only got it just before the meeting. So I'm hoping that as we are able to review it, and I am requesting a copy of it so that I can review it and have a better understanding. Can I please know what is the millage rate that you are going to have for this year? And also, I didn't hear any discussion about the fire assessment fee. And what is that fee going to be for this year for the residents? So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you very much. The millage rate last year was 6.3560. The one that's presented for this year in this budget is 6.3125. So there's a decrease in the millage rate. And the proposal here for the budget, I believe there's no proposed increase to the fire assessment rate this time. Is that correct, Mr. Santucci?
There is no proposed increase on the fire assessment fee. That's correct, Mayor.
Before I go to Vice Mayor Press, is there anyone else from the public that carry comments? I'm gonna go ahead and close it to the public then. Vice Mayor Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that the mayor was talking about is that you need to be cautious in a plan. Everybody can agree that we need to get the fire station going. That's why I brought it up. It needs to get going, but he's 100% right in terms of strategy and where that is located. You just can't just say, okay, we're gonna just put up a new fire station, because you have to think of the availability of the fire apparatus, access to roads, direction, those sorts of things. Now, since I've been there, I was a part of Deerfield when that station was built. I was there. It has drastically changed. On that statements over there. It has drastically changed in terms of population, traffic, and movement. It was not as obviously congested 26 years ago as it is now. And so I would just say that the mayor's comments, we have to keep that in mind. If you relocate it, where do you relocate it? Okay, so that you have to take into account that what's going to happen on the beach. It's going to grow. I mean, the beach population is going to grow. So in the next 10 years, it's going to be more. So if you keep it there, then the plan ought to include those considerations that, okay, we're going to have to reconfigure the whole thing so that it's not a waste of money. And I would like to thank Commissioner Drosky and Commissioner Parnas for your comments related to this issue. Thank you very much. Right on point, right on point. And so whatever we do, we must not be rash. We must just make sure that we just keep in mind, what we're doing, so that we actually don't waste money, because we know that we have a need of new stations. So we need to be very cognizant of those considerations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you. And another valid point that the mayor brought out is that the building codes have changed. When we decided to do the CRA building, we had to raise it. I think it was 10 or 11 feet because of the sea level. Right now, the firehouse is as it is, but it cannot be the same footprint. It's going to have to be raised. It's probably there's a lot of different configurations. So as the city manager mentioned, this master plan is vitally important, so that we do not waste money, waste time in designing a building that we can't build. My point is that we've got to get this master plan started, so that we can get to the next phase, which is getting these buildings either where they need to be or rebuilt. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, because previous commissions have had these conversations. We've had this conversation before, but we've got to get the plan started so that we can get it finished, so we can get on to actually getting shovels in the ground. And that was my whole point.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Santucci. Do you have anything else?
I have nothing else at this time, Mayor. Thank you very much.
I guess we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
You adjourn.
see you all next week.